You're listening to Working in Oncology, a podcast and video show that spotlights oncology practice staff and industry influencers who work behind the scenes to shape the future of oncology. The more knowledge the oncology community shares with each other, the more we all grow. Let's get into the show.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining us today. I'm Michelle Moeller with BioPlus Specialty Pharmacy, and joining us today in our podcast, Working in Oncology, is Dr. Ben Lowentritt of Chesapeake Urology, one of the premier urology practice in the Mid-Atlantic. And we're excited to chat with him today. They are involved in Zero Prostate. This is the leading group to both educate and find access for patients who've been diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer. And we're excited to chat with him today. So, Dr. Lowentritt. So I was raised by a Marine father, and a lot of how I am, and pretty much I was taught to live with mission, and it's what gives us focus, it's what gives us drive. It's the reason I do what I do. How do you live your life? What's your mission?
Wow, that's getting deep right away. I appreciate that. No, it really does feel, people talk about what drives people into medicine, what drives people into their specific type of role in any type of career. I mean, I think that what guides me mostly is finding solutions to help all types of people. It's not as generic as, well, I want to help people, but I try to find solutions that are needed, for a bigger group of people. So I love treating individual patients, but I also really enjoy trying to build a system that helps a broader group of patients, even if it's not just the ones that I'm seeing. And that comes in my work that I do within my group. It comes in some of the work that, we do externally and that I do externally. So, I mean, I think that's probably the best way to say it, is just trying to solve problems that can help the most people possible.
Have you always been a problem solver? Did this start at, age 12 or 22 or boy brain?
So when I think about it, I guess so. I think what I said is I never said no to a challenge. Whether or not I always figured out the solution, I always just sort of took on any challenge that would come and say, and never said no. Probably to my own, detriment at times that I got distracted from things. But no, I've always been drawn to a challenge.
Awesome. I think the world needs more people like you, Ben.
No, that's very sweet.
So tell us about Zero Prostate. So that's awesome. Is this something you started? Is this something your practice joined as a mission? Tell us about that.
It's a great question. So, initially, in 2007 or so, and just for a little history, Chesapeake Urology came together as a larger group of 3 prior groups in 2006. And the next year, one of my friends and partners, Sean Van Ziel, had this idea and brought it to our then president, now chairman of the board, Sandy Siegel, and said, we should do a run for prostate cancer. So, Sandy, who is, anyone that's ever met this man, he's got the energy that, everyone is drawn to and has grand visions for things. And really his immediate response was, well, let's not just do a run, let's build, for prostate cancer, an equivalent of what Komen, Susan B. Komen is for breast. So and that was kind of at the height of that movement as well in the races. So, and at first we did it under our own moniker, for a couple of years. But Zero, and it's, Zero is an organization that certainly existed before, and they do advocacy and education and hold screenings and do a number of good events. Became our partner within a few years of us starting this. And we've now been with them, I believe, for 10 years.
Wow.
But when we started it, we were, there's certainly probably other prostate cancer runs out there. But since we joined with Zero, There are now, I believe, 35 to 40 different zero prostate cancer run walks across the country, run by groups similar to ours, right? So it really did start a wave that's been really very successful and very gratifying. The Baltimore one is still by far their biggest. We've raised well over, we've raised several $1 million, and our two main beneficiaries of this are Zero themselves, and also the Urology Care Foundation through the American Urological Association, which is certainly more research-based, and then the patient advocacy and access is what Zero does.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's awesome. I just want to give a shout out if anyone listening wants to have access to that phone number. It's 844-244-1309. Again, that's 844-244-1309. And that's for patients that are looking for, I guess, I love to build a community. Like, how do you live with prostate cancer going forward?
Also zerocancer.org, just if anyone's, looking out there. Yeah, no, there's all types of resources through Zero, and from helping people get transportation to a treatment that may be needed to helping finding a screening event or just general education. There really are a lot of wonderful things that they provide, and it's really given me an interesting, as my career has progressed. I've also been really gratified to get more involved with Zero as well, and I'm on their medical advisory board now. So it's a wonderful organization. Really proud that we can have been a part of that, and it's really part of the family. It's all part of the fabric of what we are now.
Wow. I'm wearing my pink because it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Although I learned from my football boys, apparently there's the whole football industry is now leading with the catch, is it, which is about catching all of this. I have two questions. Number one, pink, does prostate have a color?
It is. It's light blue, typically. Yes. So
who decides
September was Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, and so we had our virtual version of the race just a few weeks ago. But absolutely, so no, it's. I think the concept of screening and identification early is now the emphasis for a lot of different cancers, and there's so much that we are learning about the best way to treat cancer. Sometimes super aggressively, sometimes less aggressively, right? Which minimizes the harm done, and so I think it really is a very exciting time for cancer care, for sure.
How does one typically discover that they have prostate cancer? Is there a magic age? I think 40 you get mammograms. Is there an age that men go see their urologist, or how does that?
I think the general discussion is that men between age 55 and 70 should be having a conversation with their doctors about getting screening with a simple blood test, which is PSA, and a digital rectal exam, which takes 30 seconds. So what I advocate also for is for men to understand their individual risk. Certainly men that have a family history of prostate cancer, especially at a young age, and their father or uncle or a brother, may mean that they want to get screened earlier. African-American men have a higher risk and may want to consider getting at least an initial PSA or start screening in their early 40s, just to have that baseline. Because really a lot of times it's not necessarily an absolute number in the test like that, it's how it changes over time. So having that kind of history of where it's been and now where it is can be helpful. And certainly if there's a concern, it can get us looking out for things earlier.
So in your walks and runs, who do you find to be your loudest cheerleaders? Is it I'm a talker. I like to join. Yeah. My husband isn't. The men are not always talkers.
It's a great point. And you're absolutely right, is that usually there's a very, the groups that we have that are most successful are oftentimes led by the wives and daughters of the patients. Since it's a cancer that only affects men, their biggest advocates and champions oftentimes are the women in their lives. And it's amazing to see the number of people that'll come out for one for one guy, and so we have groups that, now well into the dozens, that the whole team will come out and they'll have their own t-shirts, and, they're really passionate. They've been part of it for years and years. We've grown. We've always been in the Towson area, but we're now on the campus of the university there in the stadium is where we set up. And it's where it's always in that late, that early fall period, late September, that often the weather's just beautiful. People are loving being outside. It's a great day. It's an amazing time. We have all types of, fun things for the survivors of to do, and they get special attention and have their own tent. And we usually have some, celebrity autographs going on, and just a lot of activities for kids. So it's a real kind of festival-like atmosphere, and just, celebrating all of our patients and the men and the people that love them. But yeah, you're right in that the loudest cheers are often the women in their lives. Although I got to say, there are a lot of my guys who I'm impressed with. The patients that are being diagnosed young, this becomes, you talk about mission, this becomes their mission, right? So they're there, and they're bringing their buddies, and they're bringing their car group, their car aficionado group, or their poker group, or whatever it may be, and getting everybody to celebrate. And this is their event that they do every year. It's been remarkable to see that happen.
So have you
this year? We missed that individual interaction this year, but had a good response online.
Yeah. Honestly, the new normal. How is COVID changed what you did this year? Do you?
So it became another online event. Certainly people were invited, and we helped, to run and to share their times and things like that. But most of it was, produced and interviews, and we tried to reach out to some of those groups of patients that and patient advocates that are usually there, and hear from some of our local champions around the community, and just try to keep it on people's minds, and keep the community going, because it has been such a powerful and successful effort. And it helps define us as a company. We're a large private practice, and having an outlet like this, it just helps morale within the company. It certainly, I think, makes people look at us in a different way, and it's just really gratifying. It works on every level, right? So this has become part, like I said before, it's part of the fabric of what we are. And I think that's a testament to what advocacy like this can mean. It's a powerful, what's the right word for it? It brings people together. It's the glue that makes things stick sometimes.
Well, it's how I came to know you better.
Yeah.
I've been at Towson in the fall watching the leaves. It's pretty powerful. And I think, in 10 years, have you seen men change how they receive this diagnosis? Because now there is a community. How has that kind of changed? Think about the beginning of your career versus now.
I think it's interesting. There's been a lot of external controversy about identifying prostate cancer, right?
Huh.
So there was a debate about, should we be testing, because prostate cancer is known to be a slow-growing cancer, and in many men, the saying is, you're more likely to die with it than die of it. So that, unfortunately, in some people's minds, flipped to, well, then we don't need to really test for it, even though it's the second highest killer of cancer, of men from cancer standpoint. So even though it's probably only 1 out of every 6 men that has prostate cancer that will die of it, there's a lot of men that are living with it, right? So we've gotten a lot smarter in how we treat or monitor patients, and trying to find those patients that need things the most, and then be aggressive with them, but maybe be a little bit less aggressive with our other patients. But so I do think that men are clearly more educated about it. There's a lot out there now. But I do think it's funny. I think it's also a lot of primary care doctors kind of getting re-educated about it, because there's been a bit of controversy here, and in a world where there's so many demands on primary care physician, you know, it's got to be, it's a challenge to know, okay, to be up on the latest recommendations of every single thing that's out there. So we try to, and that's partly, you know, through Zero and others, we try to get the word out that says, hey, you know, we're all trying to be responsible about management of this disease, not overtreat, but certainly not underdiagnose. You know, having those discussions, it's a very nuanced discussion to have with a patient. And so I do think they're getting more, they're getting enough good information out there that they're a little bit more receptive to the I'll say nuance of the discussion. You know, it's a hard, it's sometimes a hard thing to get. The hardest thing to do is to tell someone they have cancer, and then a couple minutes later tell them, but I don't think it's ever going to be a problem, and we probably don't need to treat it. You know, and that's what's true of maybe a third of our patients that we can talk about when we diagnose them. So it's you know, it's an interesting kind of conversation to have. And I think it's all about education, right? And it's all about letting the patient be comfortable making their decision.
Wow. So 10 years ago, this all started with a walk or a run. What do you wish you and your group had known 10 years ago as you started this? Because
with respect,
I'm sure other practices that are like, I think need for advocacy.
I think that it's one of those last things that I said, and that I would put it out there to groups that are around that are considering things, is don't, you know, realize how much a part you play in your own community. Don't just think of yourself as, you know, a doctor's office, right? I mean, you are a valuable member of your community, and this is just one way to kind of put it out there, give back on some level, but also make people aware of what you're providing and what you want to be and how you can benefit the community that you're in. I mean, we do a lot every day for every person that's in front of us. But this is a way that you can do so much more, and it brings people into the system that might have otherwise been missed, and you know, and can really do a lot of more benefit. So kind of along the lines of what we were saying at the beginning, this is one of those things that spreads the goodwill across a broad population and can really make a difference for you. I think the only thing that for us internally, you know, I would I think those first few years we were trying to do it on our own were a bit of a struggle. I think finding the partner is really what helped us take it to even another level. So that was very important. But you know, we're always the world of urology is a fairly small world. So we have these conversations all the time with colleagues across the country, and hopefully have helped a few people I think we know we've gotten a few people started and pointed in the right direction. So, you know, reach out, find out about what you can do, and then just start doing it. You know, some races may have 250 people, you know, ours has 3,000, you know, it's whatever you're doing is valuable. So.
Yeah. Well, and it changes people's lives. I mean, it was joyful being there, you know, it was a celebration instead of a sad, or, you know, it was really fun. So how did you find Zero? I mean, in terms of making that connection with that group
so this was a little bit incestuous. So one of my longest friends that's in my group, we actually went to medical school together. His wife works with Zero, as it turns out. You know, it started with other prostate cancer organizations that kind of became Zero, but we found that we had this connection already. It wasn't something that happened after we made our connection.
Wow.
So that was probably our first introduction. But they've been active and successful certainly before we worked with them. But it just ended up being one of those things that matched perfectly.
Wow. Things happen for reasons.
I think so. I really think so.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. I just want to thank you, Ben, for joining us today. So how can people get in touch with you if they want to continue the conversation or network? What's
Absolutely.
The best way?
So, our website is ChesapeakeUrology.com. I am on Twitter at EuroDrBen. We have Chesapeake Urology has social media pages on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. We also, certainly you can just call. My personal office is 410-825-5454. And if you're anywhere in the Mid-Atlantic region, we probably have an office near you. If you call that number, you can certainly be redirected to one as well. So hopefully any of those means would be possible.
Well, and also congratulations, you guys have a 4-star rating from Charity Navigator, and 86 cents on every dollar goes to the cause you're supporting. I think what the average is 60% or something sad like that. So cheers. That deserves celebration. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Again, I want to thank Dr. Ben Lowentritt for being with us today on Working in Oncology. Thank you very much,
Michelle. Thanks.
You've been listening to Working in Oncology. To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player. If you're listening in Apple Podcasts, we'd love for you to leave a quick rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.